every generation, there comes a move that is so hated, so misunderstood, so openly mocked, that it changes the game forever. That move is... Well, it's the King's move, but we're not going to talk about that. Today, we talk about the flop. What is up, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube? Wes Björnsson here, representing Country Crush. Welcome to The Grip, where we talk about arm wrestling, powerlifting, and strongman. Let's get into it. Hey guys, how's it going? Today we're going to talk all about the flop press. It has many names, and it is widely mocked, but we're going to talk about the value of it. We're going to talk about why being a floppy boy isn't always such a bad thing. We're going to talk about how to use it, how to train it, and some counters for it. But before we do any of that, I have to tell you what the flop press is. In arm wrestling, there is a tier, like a ladder, of arm wrestling. At the very tippity top is your most outside style. It's a full body committed top roll where you're holding like a 90-degree thing, and maybe even the King's move, where it's just the whole game is about pronation and running away, making the guy hold on to you. That's at the very tippity top. Lower, we talk about, normal top rolls, and we get a little lower, and we talk about like a flat wrist, and we get a little lower, and we talk about like a high hook. We get a little lower, and we talk about like a full fucking deep hook. And then the absolute inside of the ladder, the deepest you can go, is a flop press. And as this ladder goes down the chain, the very tippity top being about how strong your hand is, and the very bottom being about no hand at all, you get this kind of delineating thing where the hand becomes less and less and less important until you're at the flop, when you are forcing the guy to take your hand. At its core, a flop press is surrendering your cup, completely giving cup away, and you're doing that so that you can exchange that cup for a forced pronation position from them, because you want to attack their bicep, and it lets you dig your shoulder in. So on the go, or on a power move, on a surge, they're surging, and you're forcing their pronation, and it's basically putting a stop to the sideways movement with your wrist, and it's giving you time to get your shoulder behind your wrist. So the whole game is about being in line with your shoulder. That's the whole goal of this move.
To blast through that wrist. Oh, back on! Look.
Okay, so now that we know what a flop press is, why should you use it? Well, the flop press is a lot like the King's move in that a lot of people try to use it, but to be really good at it, for people to know you as a flop guy, it has to almost be natural. There has to be some kind of weird mental understanding that you're just born with. The absolute reason not to use it is because you have a weak wrist. It's the biggest misconception, even among experienced pullers. They think the flop wrist is a move used by people who are too lazy to train their wrist. It's not true. And if you're using it that way, if you're new and you're just too lazy to train your wrist, so you're falling back into the same move over and over, it's not going to work for you. You're never going to be great with it. So training your wrist is very important. You need to be... It's not about them taking your wrist. It's about you forcing them to have your wrist. I want you to. In fact, I'm at a point now with the flop that I feel like there's nobody on the planet, and I know how arrogant this sounds, I feel like there's nobody on the planet whose wrist would be able to stay straight without me forcing it. I feel like this motion has become so strong, this kickback has become so strong, I think I could probably force almost anybody into that spot. Now, does that mean I could win? Fuck no. No, there's absolute counters for the flop press, which we'll get into later. It just means that your kickback, your wrist is not weak. You are just training that move. You're training to force them to take it. So applications, like in all arm wrestling, there are two versions of the flop. There is the offensive and the defensive. I don't have a defensive flop. I don't understand how it works. It feels very counterproductive that if you're losing to give away your hand. Not to mention, another very important aspect of this move is keeping my knuckles. When I flop, I have to keep my knuckles pointed at my face. So in a defensive flop, you're already turned out. It just feels like you're giving the guy something. And you never want to give away anything unless you're securing something else. I honestly don't think that's a very valid move. But some guys use it to great effect. And then there's the offensive flop, which is the bread and butter of this move. And the reason you guys should at least familiarize yourself with it. I'm not going to say you should train this move because it's not for everybody. But you should familiarize yourself with it. If the guy's hand is 10 miles above yours, then you need to make it not about your hand. That's the time you use this move. You use it when the guy's hand is miles above yours and you still need to win. It's important to win this match, right? So now we've talked about what it is, the two versions, defensive and offensive, when you should use it. Now we're going to talk lightly about how to train it. Here's my thing. I am not a good enough arm wrestler to ever try to teach somebody online how to arm wrestle. Does that make sense? I'm not Devin. I'm not Tim Bresnan. If you want to learn, go watch those dudes. All I can do is give you my experiences, right? So how to train this move. My favorite way to do it is to get a band. You can also do it with cables. And it's almost like side pressure. So the weight's over there and it's connecting around through your hand. And then you're just doing the movement like on a table. You can do it freestanding, but do it on a table just for the sake of safety. Because you can fuck yourself up doing this move. So you've got the band or the cable weight over there behind your hand, and you're almost working like a side pressure sort of setup on a table. All of this has to happen in one motion. You're gonna flop and commit your shoulder. Because if you do this, you're gonna end up outside of position. This is not where I want to be. This is going to get my fucking arm broken. Okay? This is where I want to be. So it's not a matter of this and then secure. It's boom. The kickback, the elbow tucking into your chest, and this arm on the peg. Boom. All of that has to happen in one motion. Do a traditional 5x5 with something kind of heavy. Never max on this because we don't want to break our arm. So we've got a 5x5 with something kind of heavy, and then do a shit ton of lightweight reps so that you can just get good at that motion. That's the most important part about this whole technique, is getting good at that motion right there. So that's one way to train it. Another way is, and this is specifically good if you're wanting to teach yourself to force them to take your hand. So you're training this motion. Boom, boom. One way to train that and get really strong at a kickback is tie a weight onto a rope, have a stick, or just, fucking whatever, barbell, doesn't matter. Wrap it around, and then you're doing this. Boom, 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 boom. Michael Todd does a shit ton of these. That will train your kickback, your ability to do this, even if they're trying to supinate in. So, now we talk about injuries. The flop press is a super fucking dangerous move. And it's why, even though new guys tend to use it, because their wrists are weak, I don't suggest a new guy do this. This is a lot like the King's move. These are at the exact opposites, and they are, in my opinion, both extreme versions of inside and outside pulling, right? You can snap your own arm up very easily doing this. You can snap your training partner's arm, especially if you're a big guy. Unless I know my opponent is insanely strong, I won't flop press in training with them. Because, let's say they stay locked in, boom, and they're ready for a traditional match. And you go to flop, boom, and instead of pronating out and making it about their bicep, their hand just goes, and now they've got, you know, fucking 400 pounds, and they're in this fucked up cobra position. Their arm goes that way, and it's fucking Snap City, son. So, be careful who you train this move with. The guy needs to be extremely strong. And also it helps if he's an advanced arm wrestler. And you should not be doing this in your first year of arm wrestling. I'm gonna go ahead and throw that disclaimer out. If you are relying or training a flop inside your first year, you're making a giant fucking mistake. And you should stop it. I've been rambling for fucking ever because I genuinely love this move. And people all over make fun of the flop. They call it the wet fish or the fucking the pink sissy handshake, and it's got so many fucking cute nicknames and shit. I want a shirt. If I ever make merch, I'm going to make a shirt that says the pink sissy handshake, and it's gonna be the grip, like my logo, but he's gonna be flopped back. It's gonna be so good. Anyway, guys, I just wanted to spend some time talking about my favorite technique in arm wrestling, the flop press. And I know people are gonna give me shit, because they always do, but goddammit, it wins. Thank you for watching. As always, I'm Wes Björnsson. This is The Grip, and I hope to catch you next time.